And welcome everyone to another episode of the Indie Spotlight. I'm your co-host Michael, joined by your other co-host Matt, as usual. Welcome, Matt.
How we doing, everybody?
And we have a really awesome creator with us today, Rishan, and we're really excited to talk to him all about his comic universe, Lawful Evil Comics. And so, without further ado, welcome, Rishan. And how are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We're excited to talk to you about this series today. We've actually been, we've seen your series out in the indie community, and so it's actually nice to finally get to talk to you about it and learn a little bit more. So, for those who aren't maybe familiar with you, why don't you give us a short, brief introduction of who you are and why you got started in comics?
Okay. Well, my name is Rashawn Rogers. I'm a comic book writer, as well as I was a reviewer for Concept Moon Studios, as well as a number of other. I used to review for Comics Bulletin as well. I got started in comics I started scripting comics in high school, but I didn't have any illustrators or anything or money to speak of to hire an illustrator to get my work, produced. So in 2012, I was able So let me backtrack. Sorry. After interning, I interned at Marvel Comics in 2008. This is back right before the studio,
Cool.
Disney purchased
really?
them. Yeah, I was in the X-Men office. Shout out to he's not with them anymore, but Axel Alonso taught me how to script. And it was a little different back then than it is now in Marvel. It was a little more. He was more of a big fan of the gritty stuff. He liked some gritty stuff because he came from Vertigo, And that kind of gave me after he taught me how to kind of balloon and work with an artist. I kind of got an idea. Okay, I can do this. This is something not only doable, but I may have the ability to do this. So in 2012, my first comic, The Hierophants, was published by Advent Comics. They make a number of different. They're a fairly expansive universe. There's some, I would say, spiritual overtones in there, especially if you're a person who's Abrahamic faith or what have you. They're a good company, but not just that. It's class. What I like to call traditional classic superhero stories. There are some tales, kind of like morality tales, but a lot of it is superheroes saving people, dealing with normal life, and larger than life threats.
That's awesome.
So I was published by them. Tony Kittrell's the owner of that company, and shout out to him and thank him for taking a rookie and saying, "Hey, I'll publish you. This looks good."
That's
and
really
then
cool.
and then in 2013, I with my writing partner Ashley Hurwitz, who's not with us right now due to a timing issue on my part. That's my issue, my fault. But I was writing. I was going through a bad breakup, some infidelity, not on my part, but but not to get too personal. But I always thought about, what do superheroes do when they deal? Do they deal with these kind of things? We all know what betrayal feels like. We've read Spider-Man. We've read, we know how Superman and Lois's relationship works. Another relationship or couple that we've seen in comics a lot is Green Arrow and Black Canary, and they're always back and forth. We see all these characters, and I always thought about, well, what happens if somebody goes astray? So I wrote a story, kind of almost as therapy, but also as a question about what happens when this happens, and how does a superhero deal with their significant other, cheating on them or what have you. So that was how Lawful Evil kind of got started, and I wanted what I wanted in the story was not only there's sex in it, there's action, there's a whole bunch of other things, but with the main character Dark Spider, who is, people assume that he's based off Spider-Man. He's not, but I can go into that later. His nemesis, Succubabe, which is a name she didn't give herself. She didn't give herself. She's a succubus. She's 300 years old. the relationship I wanted there was more of a kind of a playful, almost like not like Joker and Batman, but a villain who wasn't malicious, a villain who possibly actually saw potential in a hero and was like, you need to be better, almost like Reverse Flash and the Flash, right? You need to be a better hero. You're not living up to your potential as a hero, and this is what you need to do. So it was kind of, Lawful Evil kind of sprang from that, those feelings and those thoughts, and also seeing things done a little differently. I read Robert Kirkman's Invincible, and certain things I read where people, villains. It was a villain who robbed a bank, and the reason he robbed the bank is because his wife just had a baby, and Invincible was like, wait a minute, you're not a criminal. You just, whatever. Or I've read Batman issues where at the end of the issue, Bruce Wayne gave somebody a job. Batman said, take this card, never do this again. He put the fear of God into you, but never do this again. And the guy, became a janitor at Wayne Industries or whatever. And I'm like, well, what if there's some characters, villains, in comics, you can't perform. You can't fix the Joker. You can't fix Green Goblin, Zoom, Reverse Flash, Mongol, of course, is a intergalactic warlord. Even characters like Kingpin, who's one of my favorite villains, of course, because I'm a big Daredevil fan.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Some of these villains you can't fix, but others, the low-level folks, well, I think it would better serve some characters if I think about, what happens if you get this person a job. Now I have to deal with these person snatchers or whatever. They could just be criminals, but some of them are just like, I got hard times. All right, cool. So you're out of the way. Now I can deal with this person trying to poison the water supply for my attention, And so I thought about those. Yeah, I thought about those kind of like,
man. Yeah. Okay, well, I can definitely see where you're coming from with the creation of it and kind of wanting to do this different kind of story, kind of based on these different things that you were seeing in comics. Is it? Yeah. Would you say that the Lawful Evil comics, would you kind of really take it in that more dark, kind of edgy approach? Like, what is your philosophy when you write the comics?
So I would say it's dark. We originally, to be honest, my writing partner and I, we were inspired by certain web comics that had more of an adult or erotic or somewhat kind of pornographic bent to them. But as we started writing and actually building the characters and the story, we realized that this was actually going to probably form out to be somewhat of a tragedy or something a little darker. Not the darkest timeline, but again, I'm a big Daredevil fan. Man Without Fear, Born Again, even Bendis's run, some of the darker runs that, the Lone Stranger stuff. You find that heroes are tested or grow through adversity. And they have to crawl out of the mud and, look at Broken City, Batman Broken City, or, Death in the Family, or even Death and Maidens, like just little things where characters have to realize, I have to go beyond my, not to quote, My Hero Academia or anything, but you have to go beyond. You kind of have to dig deep and see what's down in there. And so I think that dark tone, Lawful Evil does have a quite dark tone. Even the beginning, the inciting incident is infidelity and revenge. At the heart, there's revenge is at the heart, and revenge that's a little short-sighted, but revenge nonetheless. So I think that dark, I would say there's an edge to it. I wouldn't say I'm not, playing the Garth Ennis role. I'm not going all the way, but it's, those kind of things, even things like The Boys, influence the thought process in relation to this story and what the tone is. It's not, it's not that failed New Warriors stuff that they tried, it's not this kind of, there are bright spots, and there can always be bright spots in stories. You always need a balance. But I think that those darker moments are usually what we find out what the characters of heroes are. Superman wouldn't be Hope if there wasn't something that made people feel hopeless.
Very true.
I think about those things.
That is a good point. I mean,
Lawful has that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You could, like, it's kind of like that idea of without the darkness, there can't be any light, in a sense.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see
And
that.
so I definitely used, and we definitely use those kinds of thought processes to uh, produce this story, I think, and move it forward. You know.
No, that's awesome. I do love that because it does seem like you're trying to do a different approach than a lot of other people out there doing superhero, stories, which I think
Yeah.
is really needed. Is a fresh approach is what's needed in the superhero genre right now.
Yeah.
I
I
appreciate
think.
that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that I look at sometimes, I look at I've read you guys' Wicked Publishing some of the stuff. Blood Ties.
Nice.
I really like Blood Ties, and I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy.
Very
I think
nice. That's
that's
awesome.
some really dope stuff. I like science
Thank you.
fiction. I like period pieces. I think everything has its place. But I think in those two stories that you guys that I've read that you guys published, I think there's so much. The creators of those are kind of lucky because comics have for so long been
Mm,
dominated by superheroes, right?
that's very true. Yeah.
I worked in Forbidden Planet in New York, in
Mm-hmm.
where I am, and we one time had this woman come in, and her friend was looking for a book, and a comic book, and she basically made a joke, oh, I don't read, people with, basically trying to make it seem like, oh, this is just kid stuff, and I think that the domination of superhero comics have had in the comics industry isn't it makes it tougher to tell a story that is that feels fresh, and everybody has their own take, everybody has their own story, everybody has their own ideas, and nobody's going to do it the way you do it, nobody's going to do it the way I do it, but we are all typically products of what we've read, what we've seen, and things like that in terms of story and good story, to be precise, that sometimes it makes it hard to differentiate between, okay, well, there are three guys with masks or three ladies with masks or capes or whatever in these, I'm looking at, let's say, I don't know, a web store or something. How do I decide which one I want to I should pick up, as opposed to, like, is it all going to be the same stuff? And
Right.
so
Yeah.
for me, I kind of was looking at it from a standpoint of, well, what do I do, or how do I make people understand that I don't even want to say that, oh, I'm different, I'm such and such, but my story is my story, and other people, me and Ashley are telling a story that we want to tell, and other people are telling stories that they want to tell. And I don't think that any of those stories lacks merit. But what I do think is that the industry has suffered as a whole, and I don't just mean mainstream stuff,
Mm.
from one, there only being two large publishing houses.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the main thing, that, people have been so inundated with the same ideas, or the same, with that this is the only thing that comic books and superhero comic books, which is of course a subgenre of science fiction, can do or can look like. And
Mm.
so what I wanted to do with some of the art and some of my promos and some of the other stuff is, hey, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing the same stuff that they're doing. I'm telling my story. We're telling our story. And they could, Marvel and DC can tell whatever stories they want to tell, but there are also, don't feel like you've seen it all because you've only seen the two or
Yeah.
a few. That's,
No,
I
that's a really
think
good point. Yeah.
I think that that hurts us a little bit, because then again you have, again, stuff like Blood Ties and stuff like Jack Irons, where people don't even know that the genres exist outside of capes and cowls. where it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
wild, huh?
it's like comic books. It's like, oh, I only think of superheroes. It's like that literally is not. That's not the only thing. For years before that, before superheroes, comic books that were told was the science fiction. They had romance, they had horror, they had all these, EC, all these other different
True.
companies. And so I think that not just in terms of the stuff that myself and Ashley create, but in general, there's a need, or there should be a need, to show that comics aren't just one thing, and even the genre of superheroes is not just one thing. There's a gentleman on Twitter, Tompa, I believe his name is.
Mm-hmm.
He retweets a lot of indie stuff, and he has a tag that says "Comics are for everyone." They
Yeah,
should be. They
totally.
should,
Yeah.
and everybody should be aware. You look at the manga scene in Japan, and they have comics about, that manga about bowling and I don't know, ironing shirts and stuff, cooking. That's awesome, and we have the capacity here to do that as well. But I think that American
Yeah.
comics have suffered from a lack of I don't want to say mass marketing, but expansive marketing.
Yeah.
And then we all have to do it ourselves, and you guys know, you're an indie publisher. We all have to do it ourselves. There is no we have heavy metal, but we don't have anything other than that.
That's true.
We don't have any Shonen Jumps or Shujo Beats or Shonen Sundays and all this other stuff.
That's
Those
a good
are
point. Yeah.
companies that just pop, boom, 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 and we have, it's like basically it allows variety, a smorgasbord, some sort of buffet. Oh, okay, I can pick this and this. Is one company, or the company that published for Concept Moon. They do have a magazine, but it's like a biannual thing. But again, we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough of, hey guys, comics are for everyone and can be for everyone. And here's how. Now, you may not like everything that everybody's putting out, but that's fine, because I'm not going to read something that, if it's a story about a living, I was going to say a living car, but I'm a big Transformers fan, so I can't even say that. But everybody doesn't have to agree on anything, except that if we are comic book creators or publishers or whatever the case we are, we love comics. We love the medium, and we want the medium to flourish. We want people to see that there is more than what they've been told there was. And again, like I said, I think that the lack of expansive marketing, or the lack of, I guess, showing people that, hey, you like weird westerns, Shack Irons. You like feudal period pieces, you can read Blood Ties. There's this, there's that, there's the third thing. Whatever it is, you can. It's here for you, but it seems so hard for people to find. Because again, I don't want to sound like like I hate the big industry or whatever, but it seems like there's a lot of. The internet helps us provide more independence, like for work for independent comic creators and publishers, but I feel like you still have a slightly long way before we are able to express to the whole world, or at least the whole country, hey guys, this is more expansive than you think it is. This medium has more legs and has something to say. We have something to say. I think a lot of us have something to say in terms of, we can tell good stories that aren't just for children, or people think just for children. So
yeah, that's a really, really good point. Like I feel like that's something that when you compare it to manga versus like U.S. American comics, you do see a lot more readership in Japan versus in America. I feel like you're right. Like the people have gotten, and maybe the movies, the superhero movies are part of the problem as well. But for some reason there is this kind of notion in America by a large majority of people, oh yeah, those are just for kids, or oh, they're all superhero stories, or those aren't for me, right? When in reality, like you said, it's for everyone.
Right. And I think it's funny that you brought up superhero, the movies and like TV and such. I think, and I could be wrong. I don't live in Japan. I'm not from Japan. I've never been there. One day I'll get there, but I think that in terms of culture, anime can be entertainment and manga can be entertainment. Comics can be entertainment. But I think that the movies, the way that they produce movies here, sometimes the television shows, I think that instead of looking at comics, the medium, as an art form, or as literature, right? Because some of these artists, some artists outside the industry and inside the industry are phenomenal. Their art is phenomenal. Their illustrations, the pencils, the inks, the colors, even some letterers I've seen. We can't take away the artistry from them, and we can't take away the literary ability of the writers. But I think that the way that Disney has, and even Warner Brothers by and large nowadays, have taken these things and made them basically like farms for entertainment. It's like it's just entertainment. It's not, we're not thinking about this as a piece of art. We're not thinking and I think that when you do that, when you look at comics as art, as an art form, as a literary art form, you give it credence and open it up to people who have this stigmatized view of it in the world. Oh, it's for little kids, or that's for this kind of people, or that kind of people, or I don't care, or there's too much. Some people have, there's too much stuff to read in it, or too much history or whatever. And I think that what the movies do is they make them packageable or somewhat digestible to lay audiences or casual audiences, but it's the same way that fast food is digestible to casual audiences as opposed to a home cooked meal, right? It's just right. You're selling it like McDonald's, right? You're selling it like one of these kind of things, It's like, we're just gonna give you the burger and this and this, as opposed to you going out on your own grill and flipping the burgers yourself.
Right. It's not gonna be as good nourishment right there. It's gonna be just
nope.
That's interesting.
Not at all. Not at all. And when you think about it like that, it also, because I remember they think, I've asked this question on Twitter before: have movies or TV shows translated to comic book sales? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. But by and large, the answer is no. And the reason is because, again, they are not looking at this as an art form. They don't even, we saw over last year or the year before, Scorsese talking about how, super Marvel movies aren't cinema, superhero movies aren't cinema, these kind of things aren't cinema. Now, they're enjoyable, but they're not viewed through the same lens as, an actual movie or a film. I guess there's different movies and films, and a lot of the superhero movies we've seen are movies. This is entertainment. We're just here, and we can shut off our brains and immerse ourselves. And some of them can tell good stories and make you feel things. But I think that the problem is, especially when you're not giving credence, and I don't mean in terms of the, honor, saying, oh, hey, this, Jack Kirby, Jack Kirby, one of the greatest ever, probably the greatest to do it, at least on this side of the world, in terms of comics. We will give him thanks but we're not going to go say, hey guys, go read the Fourth World comics. Go pick up the Fourth World Omnibus. You know, go pick up OMAC, the One Man Army Corps. You know, whatever the case. Go pick up the original Captain America or the you know, the Fantastic Four or the first appearance of Black Panther or whatever. We're not going to say that. We're not going to say pick up the original X-Men stuff, the original 5, right? We just say, okay, well, thank you for your service. And we never, they never kind of go back and say, hey, guys, this is where this stuff came from. If you like this, you know, you think about movies like, remember when Angels and Demons came out, right? And when they came out, they let you know that it was based on a book. And I live in New York, so you know we take trains and everything. I'm sitting on a train, and every other person is reading one of the books.
Yeah, really.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, okay. So this can be done, right? This can be done.
Yeah,
because
you're right. You're so right.
Reading the book to go see the movie, but nobody. I don't see people, you know, picking up. Oh, let me read Spider-Man. Let me read, you know, this. Let me read the Avengers. Let me read, you know, the Justice League. Let me read this, that, the third thing. Nobody. People, and it shows because look at the Bloodshot movie. I heard it didn't do too well. I liked a lot of Valiant stuff. I like the science fiction, the more science fiction approach to, you know, traditional, I guess, superhero universes. That was cool because they tried to differentiate themselves. But they didn't really sell that. Oh, Bloodshot's a comic book, guys.
Yeah, really.
They said it, but it wasn't like, oh, people.
Most people wouldn't know that necessarily.
Exactly. Look at perfect example. Look at this is farther back, but look at Blade, right? Blade is the perfect example. How many people knew Blade was a comic book character? Right? People weren't picking him up. People, oh, the movie's so good, it got Marvel out of bankruptcy, blah blah blah. But where were they saying, and maybe this is because of, you know, they didn't own the rights to the movie or what have you, but where were they saying, hey, go pick up these books. Go pick up the Tomb of Dracula or something.
Right. Well, I mean, can you imagine if, like, you go to see Captain America Civil War and they say, oh, yeah, go buy, look, you have like an advertisement at the beginning, like, look, Civil War, the comic book. Go check out that, where it came from.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, see where it all started. Civil War, the comic book.
Exactly.
Like, oh, maybe I'll go across the street or wherever and pick that up.
Right. That's a really smart idea, man. They really could do that.
They could, because they do it with books all the time.
Yeah,
They've
right.
been doing it with books. Hey, everybody, you see, oh, this is now a major motion picture, and everybody and their mother is reading this book. It's
true, like, and then they'll even get special covers where they'll put the people from the movie on the book.
Right, exactly. They get the actors or whatever on the cover.
Yeah, they really could be doing more of that kind of stuff.
Little That's sticker, wild. Now a major motion picture. But it seems that the companies who we grew up reading have given up on what they created. Or what they, you know, what they produced.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah. Do you feel like that's part of a reason that you wanted to create comics, was kind of try and bring some of that back into you know, the comics scene?
Well, yeah, that was part of it. Part of it was that I'm a guy from Brooklyn, black guy from Brooklyn. I wanted to do a story, and like I said, I had that situation that happened to me, and I had never seen that story, and so, you know, that infidelity story from my point of view. So I did that, but I also, I wanted to bring back that, again, this is art. This is an art form. We're not abandoning this. The heroes that raised us, we're not abandoning them. Like, to segue into Dark Spider, people assume that Dark Spider is, because of his mask, people assume that he is based off of Spider-Man, when actually he's based off of, I really thought about this, so forgive me.
No,
his costume is based off one part Daredevil battling Jack Murdock Daredevil, the armored Daredevil costume. One part Black Panther Man Without Fear with the bulletproof vest. His mask is based on the Grendel. Matt Wagner's the Grendel from Comico and what was that? Dark Horse. It was eventually purchased by Dark Horse. I'm a big Grendel fan. Nice. And he has his weapons are these sickles that like fold in and out, and that's to be honest based straight off of Daredevil's Billy Clubs. I wanted to have a different feel, but still have that kind of ninja feel to the character. And then his naming convention is actually based on Black Panther, because I took instead of taking the color, I took a synonym for it, and Dark Spider. The spider comes from the fact that he's a descendant of the spider god Anansi.
That's cool.
He's part of like like the Chased from Daredevil. It's kind of like the Chased. He's part of like a cult or like a group of warriors that fight another group that are similar to the kind of like the Hand, but they're not ninjas. They're actually like extra dimensional monsters. But I took those elements, and that's how I made the character. It's several characters. It's the Grendel, it's Daredevil, it's Black Panther. That those are my three like inspirations for the character in terms of the design and the just even the some of the backstory is just based on some of that.
Well, I love his design. It came out really cool, man.
Thank you. Yeah, that's our art. Pete Kachako. He's a really great artist. Really good. He's been working with us for a long while, and he's helped us build the iconography of the story and the characters. So I'm very grateful for him. But as I said, in those the design in the naming convention, that's how I have not let my heroes. I have not forgotten my heroes. I have not forgotten my heroes, even though the companies that made them have the right to do what they want with them. However, I'm remembering my heroes in the manner that I grew up with them in this design and the naming conventions and the history, the story of the characters and how they behave. So, it's kind of like an homage to those old kind of things, to those old kind of stories and how the heroes used to be.
That's awesome. In the chat here, I just wanted to point out here, Stefan says, extra dimensional monsters, tell me more.
Okay. Okay. So there are two main characters. There's Dark Spider and Succubabe. Succubabe and I, so Ashley and I created Succubabe. Ashley is the main brain behind Succubabe, creating Succubabe, and I created Dark Spider mainly. So we kind of take a little bit of the whole Sumerian myth of the Tower of Babel, and we play with that. So Anansi is an extra dimensional entity that is tasked with defending our universe. That's his job. But if anybody knows the Anansi spider god story, is that he's a trickster. He also taught man how to think. But his main thing was like he liked to play tricks. So he would like his parent, like the god or what have you, had told him, I need you to you've messed up too many times. I need you to take these things from several entities that are around, the planet. But in this story, he's trying to find an object that allows him to alter time and alter space as well, called the quantum tapestry. He finds it, but when he does, he unleashes unleashes three entities that were the prototype for what humanity is today. And in doing so, he unleashes them onto the planet Earth, because the object that he finds, he brings it back to his home on Earth, on the planet that we now know as Earth. When he does that, or rather, after he brings the object back, this the quantum tapestry, he's unleashed these people. God basically says, "Hey, look, this is your fault. So your entire bloodline, like from this point on, your family line has to keep these beings in check, because you unleashed them back onto the Earth." And so they're known as, yeah. So it's basically like But it's a lesson, you know. You don't go looking for things that you're not supposed to find.
Yeah.
And if you find stuff, don't open up a bunch of other stuff.
And if you get something done, it's kind of like that. What is it? That old saying of "Be careful what you wish for," in a sense.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so those extra dimensional monsters are called the Dreamspawn.
Oh.
And the Dreamspawn there's three. There's Iblis, Deva, and Marduk. And the three of them represent different things, but Iblis is the oldest one, and he's also the only one that survives their first encounter with Anansi. And that fight, that first and last encounter, happens at the Tower of Babel, where the tower's literally brought down on top of them. And so Iblis is he's an incubus, essentially. So he travels around impregnating women, and in their dreams and things like that, and having kids. And he'll have one of his children is Succubate. Her real name is Lily. But she doesn't want any part of this, her father's grand plan, which is essentially, God locked me away. I'm angry. I'm going to make this entire world my own world, because basically that African proverb, a child shunned by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Wow.
And so that's kind of that thing. That idea is that Iblis is a villain. Don't get me wrong, but he's a hurt child. At the end of the day, it's like, yo, like, this is, you're going about this the wrong way. So Anansi, everybody has their own cross to bear, their own bones to make in this series. And the extra dimensional monsters they originally came through dreams, as Iblis's power warrants. He can go delve into your mind. Eventually he had kids, and he has a bunch of kids, but his two main sons are essentially trying to revive him and his sister and brother, and they need vessels because their bodies are gone. And the two sons and Lily are the perfect vessels, but Lily, again, wants no part of it. So she teams up with an heir of Anansi, who is Jamal, who is the Dark Spider. And it's interesting. Their relationship is like, they're best friends. That's really their relationship. Some of the art, some people think that they're lovers or what, they don't know, but they're best friends. And this first image, actually, this is her convincing him to get revenge on the guy who his girlfriend slept with. This is the devil on your shoulder kind of thing. And again, like I said, she was never a malicious villain. She always said, look, one, I know your bloodline has the ability to defeat mine. Two, I know you have more potential than you're using. You're holding yourself back. Start with this. Don't take any more shit from anybody. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to curse. I don't know if I can.
No, it's okay.
Don't take any more crap from anybody. This is you could, this, you were wrong. And so that's why we did this cover, because the cover was actually done by Close Rodriguez, another artist we worked with. And that's why we did it this way. It is an homage to another cover, to a Marvel cover, but I thought it had more meaning. It had more meaning in this particular piece, because it is literally that little demon on your shoulder, that person who, you have that friend, and you're like, oh man, something happened, you broke up with your girl, whatever, or your boss, and like, screw that person, man, you're awesome, forget them. And it's like, yeah, she's that person to him, but it sometimes gets him in trouble, so it's what, that's another thing, because in the beginning, in the first two issues, there's a lot of, I don't want to say witty banter, but it's comedy, because he's like, why am I doing this? Like, well, that friend who's like, I I shouldn't do this. And she's like, yes, you should. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna do it. And then it's like, oh, why did I listen to you? Like, like, why did I do this? But, again, it's also part of him wants to do some of this, to be a little freer in himself, because he's played by rules for a long time, and he, there's levels of respect in the universe of Lawful Evil. Superheroes don't necessarily have to worry about money sometimes, because some of them become movie stars to star in their own films. Some of them get action figure endorsements and TV shows, and some of them are contracted by the government. Some of them are sponsored by, it's like, wrestling or something. Well, maybe not WWE, but like other companies where, you could be on the cereal box of, Fruity Pebbles or whatever. John Cena, he's a Mountain Dew commercial. Yeah. You can get that even though your job is one thing. Exactly. It's like people want, because we always want heroes. Anansi's another example. This is a story of this, spider god who's a trickster, but he's also this hero. Hercules, we have Thor, we've had, so many human history has had so many different types of heroes and icons that allow us to work towards a better version of ourselves, becoming better people, right? They have these mighty feats. So in the Lawful Evil universe, companies have commodified this. They've been like, hey, look, everybody wants a hero. Why don't we give them? We make our own mythology, and it's also kind of a meta conversation, because we have like analogs to the Justice League and the Avengers and different, because those are those are people familiar with it. We grew up on it. Ashley and I grew up on those characters, but it's also kind of a meta narrative, because I've always felt like, and we've always felt like, she and I've always felt like, superheroes, when you look at them, are our new mythologies. Superman is the like this, symbol of hope, and so he's the man of tomorrow, right? What does that mean? What does the man of tomorrow mean? That Ubermensch idea, being the best possible version of yourself, right? Being benevolent, being kind, being good, but always doing the right thing, and being the person that we can be the next day and the next day and the next day, getting better. And so it's kind of, that's also where the companies controlling the narrative of what a modern day mythological hero looks like in Lawful Evil comes from as well, because superheroes are a modern mythology, but companies are like, hey, we can control what people, want to, the image, what they see, and it funnels back in. Exactly. Which also funnels back into our conversation about the movies, because again, you could be holding up these movies as a part of the art form, like we said, advertising the original work, but they also control the optics, the imagery. So that's where that. But I hope that I answered that question about the.
No, that's great. Yeah. Monsters. No, that's awesome, and I actually kind of made me wonder, like, what does the name Lawful Evil mean to you in terms of the comic?
Oh, so Ashley and I are both D&D fans. We play D&D. We have a group. Nice. And I'm a half orc monk, if anybody's wondering. She's a tiefling bard. But Lawful Evil, the idea of the name comes from, in the story, after Dark Spider, gets revenge on the guy the superhero, he's a really popular superhero, Primer, who his girlfriend cheated on him with. A few other things happen that make the people that that kind of associate with him and were wronged in some cases by the company Terminus that funds and endorses Primer's team, the Concordance. They're branded as these super terrorists or superheroes, super villains rather. They're framed. It's not a Dark Spider is guilty of what he did, but their team is not guilty of doing the rest of the things. Basically, they pile things on them. And so they take the name in terms of the idea that sometimes you are viewed as the villain, even though the people that you are dealing with are worse, or the actual wrong party, antagonistic party. And so they're doing the right thing, the wrong thing the right way, or the right thing the wrong way. It depends on how you look at it. But the idea of lawful evil is, Batman originally, when he first appeared, he was a vigilante, right? Not the 30s when he was deputized and everything, but I mean, like, you look at Frank Miller's like Year One and such like that. The cops were looking for him too. These Spider-Man, he's on the wrong side of the law, but he's doing the right thing. So the idea of lawful evil, I know in D&D it means something else, but here we take it to mean that the heroes are actually the people that are branded as villains. And they own that. They own that, okay, you want us to be your antagonists. You want us to be your enemies. You want us to be the bad guys. We're going to be that until we're able to show everybody what the truth is. But we'll take that on. We'll carry that load. We'll bear that cross. We'll hold that burden. And so they kind of lean into the idea that, they're criminals and what have you. And they get hammy with it. There's some like campy, some hammy stuff in there. We have little, I guess not lighthearted moments, but because Dark Spider has never been a villain in his life. He didn't know what being a criminal is about. I mean, he was trained as a warrior. He was trained almost as an assassin. Like I said, very much like Daredevil or somewhat similar to the Grendel. And but as he came back to America and was rehabilitated or went to therapy, he wanted to be a force for good. So his idea of being a villain is like this, I'm going to go and pie the mayor, like this kind of like, Adam West Batman kind of stuff, like super campy. I'm going to explain my plan to you, well, whatever. He has this notion of evildoers or villainy that is Sucky Babe's like, whoa, hold on. You don't know what you're doing. Like, I got to give you some lessons if we're going to do this. We're going to make people, if we're going to play this role, I got to give you some lessons because you just seem like you read your villains. It's like Jim Kelly, you came straight out of a comic book, so his idea of villainy is kind of outdated or it's cartoonish. And so he has to be, I guess, educated in those ways, but he's still a good person at heart. Actually, Sucky Babe's a good person at heart as well. Her main plan is to stop her brothers who actually happen to own Terminus also. So
it sounds like you have like a really expansive world and story that you created.
Yeah, we definitely did. We definitely did create a
right. And you have a co-production between you and your partner. And so, do you both write on and create on the series then? Yes,
we have a number of Google documents that we both we get on and we'll write. Lawful Evil is out. The first issue is out, and we have a few other side stories, but we do co-write, and I think it works. It helps a lot. Our co-writing, because there are things that I am good at that I get so into, and she'll like look at it and be like, okay, but what about this? And it's like, oh man, I forgot about that. I didn't, so we work very well because you can see what you're when you're creating your work, when you're writing, you aren't necessarily looking at your work from a standpoint of, oh, what may be missing here, or what could be added here, what can make this better, or what could be removed here. Because sometimes you get a little, as a writer, sometimes I get in love with a little bit in love with my own language, and it won't help the story, it won't serve the story. So it works together well together.
That's cool.
I'm thankful to have her as a writing partner and as a friend. We've been friends since college.
Very nice.
Sometimes I'm not. I get tunnel vision, and I'm not the best person at keeping track of what have you. But I do appreciate her greatly. So and our writing partnership has been very very. It's been a very important part of my life. And also, I think very good for both of us in terms of just creating and growing as writers. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's excellent. When you can find someone to work with like that, that's really someone you want to keep working with continually.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
and actually, just to your point there, there was that question of it. Is it out already? Is there going to be a campaign or anything of that nature? And where can people get it?
So yes, so it is out. We do have the first issue out. Lawful Evil issue 1 is out. We have it on Gumroad. We're working on the website. That is out. And we have some side stories and some anthologies also on Gumroad. Hey, thank you. You just posted the Lawful Evil Gumroad. Issue 2 is almost finished. We'll be doing a Kickstarter campaign. We have a bunch of stuff, T-shirts. We have some stickers. We have some COVID masks, actually. Same colors, like the Lawful Evil logo, as well as the Dark Spider mask kind of style thing.
That's cool. That's cool, yeah.
We have a couple of different things, yeah. So we were trying to think about, being on brand with the times and such. So, if that's your thing. But yes, issue 2 is coming out soon. We are working steadily on that. My character, Dark Spider, will also be in an issue of Advent Comics' Titan the Ultraman 3. And we have some plans for Sucky Babe to be doing some team ups of her own as well.
Nice.
So we're trying to expand. We do have a very deep universe. We have a story Bible and everything, and we've got scripted about 9 issues scripted so far. And that was we had originally 13, but we kind of went back and reanalyzed and looked at how, like I said, when we realized the story had the tone got darker than, and we realized that the tone was darker than we initially thought or were thinking about, but it fit. So we went back and we started rescripting so that everything could be a little more not only concise but also fit our feel and invoke an emotion in not only from the reader about the main characters, but also the antagonists and everything. Everybody has a reason why they're doing what they're doing in Lawful Evil. And that's something, Dr. Doom's a bad guy, but Dr. Doom's only a bad guy in America, right? Or wherever. He's in Latveria. I mean, some people, he's people in some cases are in a bad way, but Doom's got a story, right? Doom's got a heartbreak. He loved his mother. So I think those we also want to make sure that those were placed in the script as well. Those the care or the recognizing that the villains aren't just mustache twirlers and not just Snidely Whiplash or something. So we went back and did that. But yeah, Lawful Evil issue 2 is coming. We're gonna do a campaign, and we have a few other things coming up.
Oh, nice.
So,
what kind of a crowdfunder have you chosen your platform or anything of that nature yet?
We were looking at mainly Kickstarter, but we might do Indiegogo. We're not sure yet. We were looking at those two mainly. Nice. I know Indiegogo's a little more, I guess you could say safer, right? In terms of how they allow you to, you can keep the money and then continue the campaign and everything.
True, yeah.
So we're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we're thinking about that as well. Our original idea was Kickstarter, looking at other people, other folks who were doing very well there. But it vary. We may change our mind. We're not sure just yet. Originally, it was just going to be Kickstarter, but we took a step back and looked at some other stuff, and we're like, oh, okay, there's some, like you said, nice features here, some other things we could do here. So you know that
That's cool. Yeah. And when do you have a plan on when people might expect to kind of see that showing up?
issue two, we were hoping sometime at the end of April. Our artist, our illustrator, because we're one of those people. I've read, you've done market research, and you read, is it better to have the project done before or after or what have you? And so we're trying to get as much done, to be honest, out of pocket, so that we're not delaying, and people aren't waiting forever for our project to be sent to them or given to them.
Smart. Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to deprive anybody of that. I know what it looks like or feels like to be waiting and then even forget. Oh, I forgot I pledged to this, and then the project, the reward or whatever comes in, and you're like, oh man, I forgot that I even pledged to this. It's been so long, so we want
Yeah,
to make
really.
sure that the project is mostly done, or done at all, just completely done before we even start working on the launching. So at least we know that's going to be out, and most of the rewards we already have as well. So we're just waiting for the project to be done, and then the last couple of pages, we have about 6 pages to be finished, and we have our letter is working really well with us, our letter of Travis Ware. So yeah, so we definitely hopefully by the end of April, beginning of May, this one will launch. We'll have a more definitive date as the last couple of pages come in. But artists sometimes work, things happen. So hopefully the end, we're looking at the end of May, so probably I would say the middle of the second quarter of the year.
So pretty close. Coming up very soon.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. Well, very cool, man. Congratulations on getting that first chapter finished and getting almost here with the second one. And I wish you luck on the crowdfunder campaign. We'll definitely be rooting for you there.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be keeping my eyes on it for sure.
Right.
One quick question that I personally have about the comic and even the future of the comic. Did you plan on bringing any more mythological or religious beings into play? Or even places?
So originally we did. The original story. We had. So the main, I guess, forces for good were originally animal gods. So we had animal gods from America, from Asia, from Europe, from Africa, from South America. We had kind of like a coalition of these, kind of like the quintessence in DC, like these beings that came together and were like, well, okay, it wasn't just an Anansi, but the thing is, as we continue to write the story, everything got a little too far away from us. So we were like, okay, we're going to kind of truncate a little bit, because we had written like a timeline and all this other stuff. And it was like, hey, when are we going to get to this? Because we're almost writing in a completely different story in the universe. But once the Lawful Evil proper, my plan originally was, and I'd spoken to Ashley about this, is that once the Lawful Evil proper story had concluded, that Anansi's the last of the totems or the animal gods that exist in our universe. But once the main story ends, something happens where the other ones start to come back. So they're allowed for kind of, so we do that. That is something that I was looking forward to in the future, in terms of getting more mythological entities and things like that placed into into the story universe and having more religious, or I guess cultural iconography placed into the universe, because I like, a lot of that stuff, is really dope to me. It's always been really cool to me. I've always liked how different cultures have different types of, you see a lot of kind of cool like entities and things like that. Just a little side note, I always wondered why in Marvel we never got a Black Panther and Thor story, like two princes, like a two prince, right? Like they're both princes. They're both kind of like, in T'Challa's story, after his father dies, he's kind of the rebellious kid. Like, he's going to find his father's killer. I always thought it would be really awesome. Like, Thor comes down and, teenage T'Challa, teenage Thor, and he's like, hey, man, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm looking for my father's killer. He was like, yeah, well, I'm looking for, just some adventure. How about I join? He's like, suit yourself. And they're just roaming around like, these two mythological entities, these people who are, and I always thought that would be cool. Like, so like like a culture emerging, kind of like, hey, like, we're not, why don't we just do this, or why don't we just have this adventure, like, that kind of thing. So yeah, we do plan on having those kind of things, and just having that kind of like I guess like a menagerie, as it were.
Yeah, speaking of a menagerie, it really does, like, I'm pulling up this image here. It really looks like you have a variety of characters and just in like so many different aspects. Like, just looking at this image here, like, makes my mind go like, oh, I wonder who this is, or who this is over here.
So yeah, this is the Lawful Evil team. Basically, from the left and the top left, on the left side, Sucky Babe, of course, Dark Spider in the center. And then we have Scarlet Recluse, who is she's from Anansi's clan too, but she's from a different branch, because Anansi, in his story, he has a lot of kids, so she's from one of the branches, so they're like far apart.
Okay.
They're like not cousins, but they're like, it's like very distant relatives, very distant, very distant. Yeah. The guy below that is a guy named Game Master. Now, Game Master, he's as you can see, he's shaped kind of like a D20 a little bit, like a clockwork, kind of like a steampunk D20. His whole thing is that he builds these like traps and objects based on like a Dungeons and Dragons, or kind of like a tabletop role playing game kind of thing. So he'll have these like little robots that are shaped like D20s that like shoot lasers, and they float around, or they have arms and they pick things up, or and his whole thing is he's like a kind of like our throwback to the classic villains, where you'll have like, I don't know, like the Music Meister, or Typeface, or something, a typewriter, or piano. He's that kind of guy. His idea of villainy is this showy, kind of getting attention. The guy in the center, he's a cyberneticist. Cyberwolf is his name. He is a character who has a very tumultuous path with Terminus, but his whole thing was building cybernetic implants for soldiers who had lost their limbs, people who were born without limbs, things like that. That was his main plan, but he's another person who was framed so that his technology could be used for a particular reason. And he's one of our kind of like aces in the hole kind of characters. He's very important towards a good part of the story, and he has his own secrets. So we get into that a little bit later. To the right, or to the left of him rather, is Jinx. She's the heiress to the richest man in Mexico, but her mom, his wife, is not her mother, so she was kind of, left, cast aside, thrown out, because it wasn't proper, I guess you could say, and And so she said, I'm gonna strike out on my own. She became a mercenary, lived on the streets for a while, became a mercenary, and eventually got herself hooked up with Lawful Evil. And then the last person is a character we have called the Senior Citizen, and he's actually based on a character that a friend of ours created during a Dungeons and Dragons game.
That's awesome.
And we were fighting him, and like for some reason we kept getting terrible rolls and he kept getting amazing rolls, and so he was destroying us, and we're like, wait a minute, this guy's like just a regular old man. So we created this character, and he has like weird catchphrases like my social security check was late, so I'm angry now, like this kind of thing. But he also actually has an interesting backstory. He's also actually a son, one of Anansi's many sons, and he didn't want to fight. And something happened to him in which he gets amnesia, where he throws himself off a cliff, and because he's immortal, he's a demigod. He gets amnesia, and he acts kind of like funny and a little senile, but the damage that he has, not only the physical but emotional damage that he has based on his backstory, explains why he was behaving that way. And then in the story now, where the scripting that we have, that Ashley and I have written, you start to see those memories, those terrible memories that he has coming back, of war, of different things like that. And he's like, oh, like you could see why he would rather be in this state of, I guess senility or forgetting, as opposed to remembering those things. So everybody has a story. This whole team has a story, and they're kind of supposed to be like I said, like a menagerie, like this. They don't look the same, and they're kind of a mismatch, and they're supposed to be, because they're Lawful Evil. Outside of being an edgy revenge story, something dark, is also about finding home, and that sometimes the people that we call friends can be our family. They band together based on, and not to sound sappy, but they band together based on a mutual enemy, but they later kind of realize, hey, like, I like these people. I like being around you guys. You guys are my friends. You guys are, my family. You guys are the only people who supported me based on this, or, who believe, like, in this case of Cyberwolf, the gentleman in the middle with the beard. Like I said, he was framed, and he's also different, very different, specifically based on the fact that he's a cyborg, and there's other things about him that he thought people wouldn't really be like, oh, I don't, that's weird or what have you. And they're like, no, you've been at our back in battle before. We've almost died together, so, we've lived together. They have like a secret hideout or whatever. So, no, we're friends, that kind of thing. So it kind of, it's another thing. That's why they look different, because if you look at, we have another image. I didn't send it, but the Concordance. These guys look a little different. They look a little like patchwork, as opposed to the Concordance.
We have actually an image here that I can pull up here. It looks like this is might be and maybe you can tell us a little more about the Concordance. But it looks like this was maybe like a recruitment ad. Is what I kind of got.
Right.
Or not this one. Oops, sorry.
So the Concordance is Terminus. Terminus is a company that basically manages superheroes. We have on the left here we have Primer, and on the right we have Virga. Obviously, these pastiches to, or these analogs to Superman and Wonder Woman by degrees, and they're very polished. Their PR is on point. Terminus makes sure that they are looking, I don't want to say like high school, quarterback kind of deal, or, but that's kind of how they are. They're very well kept. They're very well liked, and a lot of their mishaps, if any, are paid off or removed from public eye, or discredited. And so, but even they have their own stories. Primer comes from a future where he looks like Superman, but he's more like Booster Gold. He comes from a future where he's not the man. And he came back into the past to warn people about what was coming or the possible future, and ended up staying and becoming the man here. But he's like I said, he's kind of like that high school quarterback, but that's also that insecurity that he has, or the burden that he has. And it's not to say that he's the insecurity means that he's weak or anything. It just means that we all have our own things that we got to deal with. And so we deal with them in different ways. Virga, actually, the reason that she joins the Concordance is because Primer is stronger than her, and she looks for worthy opponents. But she belongs to like a group of harpies, like a family of kind of like harpies that living in Crete, and she's the only one who kind of left because she didn't want to. She felt that their isolation doesn't open up the world, doesn't open you up to new challenges. It doesn't grow you. Basically, she felt her people were stagnant, and in order to see, it's a little Wonder Woman-ish, but it's more like, hey, how are we gonna grow if we're just staying isolated to ourselves in these caves? Like,
right? Okay. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
that's not how the world works. We don't. If you don't test yourself, if you don't go farther, go beyond those things, you're not gonna be. We're just gonna stagnate until we just extinct or whatever. We're just gonna be the same.
You'll plateau. You can't reach your true potential if you just don't expose yourself to those new things.
Right. So yeah, the Concordance. This is one of their ads, and we actually see two of their new recruits in issue 2. There are some other characters in the Concordance. There have other teams. We have Primer, who's our Superman analog, like I mentioned. Virga, our kind of Wonder Woman analog. We have a character named Nightsider, who's kind of like our Batman guy. We have the Gray from Ganymede, who is like Martian Manhunter, but not really, because he's actually on Earth just to spy. And he kind of he was caught by Primer, and Primer was like, I just been watching you guys so I could join you guys. And that's like a lie. He's not a threat, but he's the power, the caliber of we call our metahumans or what have you preternaturals. The level of power that the preternaturals on Lawful Evil Earth has made other galactic civilizations nervous in some cases, or just curious. And Gray, his people, sent him down to kind of say, okay, well, let's keep an eye on this, especially since Primer came back, because he's extremely powerful. Virga, Virga. It means old, or Vira. In some cases, it means old woman, but it also means like ferocious woman, like kind of.
Okay.
Somebody asked in the chat, so I was just how to pronounce it. But then we have character Ranger, who's kind of like, he's like a Green Lantern, but he's more like, he's like an Alan Scott Green Lantern mixed with like a Captain America type. He's one of our characters. He's like the most, I guess, everyman type of character in that team that we see. He lives in an apartment. He was a soldier. His name is on record. Lives with his boyfriend, but he's kind of like this guy who's like, I joined the Concordance because 1, they're the best, and 2, because they're the symbol of hope for the world, and I'm gonna be that. So Ranger's kind of like, I don't want to say he's like Firestorm, but he's not a rookie either, but I don't want to say naive either, because I don't feel like characters like Captain America are naive, but he believes in the best in people. And he does in some cases has brought that out of his teammates. He's kind of like, I don't know, I guess the heart of the team, or like the team's former little brother, because the Concordance, this poster recruits two characters, Quattro and Solara, who are two younger characters who join, and they're under. So there's the Concordance is interesting. He's optimistic. The Concordance is interesting because there is like a senior group and a like junior group. The senior group is Primer, Virga, Nightsider, and Gray's kind of in the middle. And then the junior group is Ranger, Quattro, and Solara. So Ranger, when he was the rookie, he was like, there was only just him as the rookie. But as he got, he became more senior, I guess. He was the person who, I don't want to say babysits the newbies, but he shows them the ropes.
Okay,
he's the one who's like, let's go. We're gonna go out and patrol. We're gonna go out and whatever. He's the one who, kind of like, if they're in a crisis situation, he'll be like, okay, listen to what Primer says or Virga says or whoever, and or if he's the senior most person there, he's gonna listen to. And he's a soldier. He was a soldier, so he has that kind of mind. He has the head for it. So yeah, the Concordance, they are. I mean, each of them is not the greatest person. Again, all of them are fairly self-involved. Even Ranger is like I said, he's optimistic and everything like that, but he believes that he's self-righteous. He's a little self-righteous. Like, this is, we're on the right side of things. But again, everybody in the Concordance has their own complexities. They're doing what they're doing because of, like I said, Primer wasn't the man in his past, in his future, which is his past now. And he's the man now. And he kind of brings the question of, yeah, he's a dick. He can be a dick, and you could hate him or whatever. But let me ask you a question. If you had the chance to be the man in a particular place when you were not the man before, or, be something else, appear to be better, would you do it? And a lot of people would say yes. They would say, hey, yeah, I would like to. You may not go about it the same way he did it, but, you would probably be like, yeah, I why not? And you can't. And even if everybody wouldn't do that, a good number of people would, I think, or some people would. So you can't fault him for making the choice that he did, or making the choice that he does, or when you haven't had a taste of something ever, now you want the whole plate, or whatever the case is. So, and he wants the whole plate. So you can't. It's human, he's human. I think that's one thing that we really want to get across with Lawful Evil, is that all of these characters have their own flaws and their own, positives, but they're human. That's the human race. That's who we are. That's the species we are. We're not perfect, but again, like Virga said, we're not trying to plateau. Perfection is that plateau, but we keep trying to reach it, even though we know that that's not something we're really going to reach. So I think that's another thing you want to convey with Lawful Evil, is that all of these characters are human. You may not agree with everything that everybody does, but there's a reason for it. We're not gonna say that there's no reason, because everything is cause and effect, right? There's not even if we don't know the reason, there's something there. So
that's really interesting. I do love how even though you have these different, the Lawful Evil group and you have the Concordance, it does sound like you're really trying to make every character dynamic and really have something you bring to the table in terms of their story.
Right. Yeah. I think that, and that was important to us, especially Ashley had mentioned that she was, to me, she was, saying like, we really do need, because we were working on lawful evil team, and she was like, we should also do a lot more we can do a lot more with the concordance. I was like, you know what, you're right. We can move forward and tell their stories, because you want to have living, breathing characters. That's how the reader is going to relate to them. You want to have characters that are living and breathing, not just, well, this person just races cars or something. And that's the way their character begins and ends, race car. So, you know, I think that's also important for creatives, for writers, especially, to say, hey, everybody should have some sort of narrative. Perfect example of that is a movie like Die Hard, the first Die Hard movie. Everybody had a story there, whether it be small or large. So I approach writing a lot of the times like that, and that's how I approach this in terms of narrative.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I love that approach. I do feel like that's adding that level of depth and just the care that you're putting into it. I definitely feel like it's gonna be worthwhile for the reader when they're going in to read those stories.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
you're very welcome. Yeah, and so you have the first issue out right now, and the second issue is coming soon. Going to be crowdfunding that in the next couple of months. Is there anything you want to tease us about the next issue or share about the future of the series?
Next issue, I want people to be. This is going to be a heavy action issue. Nice. Issue 1 has a longer fight scene, and one of the things I talked to Ashley about is I hate writing fight scenes because I get so into them.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, we get so into them. But issue 2 is going to be, it's easy to get pulled in. Issue 2 is going to be a heavy action, almost nonstop action, but not losing the narrative. We're not losing the narrative. So expect that if you're looking for like an issue 2 that's literally explosive, because we have a couple of them, then keep an eye on that. For the future of Lawful Evil, I just want to say that it's going to get a lot. I don't want to say darker, but tougher.
Oh no.
There will be a silver line. There's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but again, like I said, I think characters, you grow characters, and some heroes grow in some cases, through that adversity, that iron sharpening iron. And we have a lot more going on in terms of Dark Spider and Succubabe in their own spaces, in terms of like solo books we have. Just things explaining where they were prior to the beginning of Lawful Evil, because we do that, as well as we have an origin series that we're working on called Lawful Evil Conception, and that is going to be actually the first time that Dark Spider and Succubabe meet in their civilian guises. Lily and Jamal, they meet in an unexpected place at a very young age. Jamal's actually 13 at the time. They meet in a particular space. She's she's his therapist when he comes, when he gets back. It's very interesting.
That's interesting. Really, yeah, that's a dynamic I expected there.
So that's when the whole, I don't want to say the partnership starts, but
the
that's
seeds are planted.
Right. That hero, the idea for Lawful Evil, and we have origin stuff for Succubabe coming up. We have some origin stuff for Dark Spider coming up. We have origin stuff for Primer coming up.
Wow.
For the Concordance as a whole, we have some origin. Then we have another team that called the Vigilant. They're like a government. They're kind of like our version of the Avengers, but they're a government contracted deal. They're like the number 2, I guess you could say, team in the world. But we have some. Right? Yeah, no. The Vigilant. So the Vigilant is like, so the Concordance is number one.
Oh, they're the number one,
And
right?
then,
Okay.
yeah, and then the Concordance is number one, and the Vigilant is number two. The Vigilant were assembled by the government almost as a response to the Concordance, because the Concordance is privately funded, whereas the Vigilance is funded by the federal government. So it's kind of
Interesting,
like
yeah.
almost like a deterrent, but they also have we're also going to do some like little campy things, like like a baseball game, like Vigilance versus Concordance, like they're not
Nice.
they're not they don't dislike each other. The teams don't dislike each other. They know why the Vigilant exists, but they like each other. They're cool with each other. So they have little baseball games for bragging rights and stuff like that. So we're gonna get into things like that as well. Down what we call downtime stories, that I think are
Okay.
also just as important. One
That's
of the
really
things I
awesome.
liked about Thank you. One of the things I liked about the X-Men specifically, a lot of the X-Men stuff that happened in Grant Morrison's run, and after that, and even before that, of course, Claremont stuff, is we get to see people living regularly, almost living regularly outside of costume. What's your life like? I think that also helps endear the reader to the character. Oh, this person's going to the corner store, or like Spider-Man's famous, about going to the bathroom, as a superhero, oh, it's a regular. I want to get a hot dog, I remember seeing an image of Luke Cage and Daredevil sitting on a gargoyle, sitting on a roof, and Daredevil's eating a hot dog, and Luke Cage is drinking coffee, and I'm like, this is great. Like, this is what about this? So that kind of stuff I like. I like that kind of stuff too. So we're gonna have some more.
Right?
Yeah, some more. Yeah, with our characters, some more human stuff.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and it does sound like the Lawful Evil universe is really expanding a lot in the coming months and years.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely are going to have more expansion in terms of how we see characters and the characters in the story. So, yep, we definitely have a lot planned.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I love to see all those plans, because I do think that a expansive universe like that, it sounds like you guys have so many stories that you can tell with that, and it'll just be really interesting to see where you go with that.
And I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate you. And people wanting to look. I also and this is just my a hope that I've always had, is that people wanting to come in and tell their own stories in the Lawful universe as well.
Well, that's cool.
That would, like I'm one of those people who like I said, comics are for everyone, and I think I want us to all win. So if I can help somebody win in that manner, and like, oh, hey, I like this. I have a character idea, and I think it would be good in your life. Or I like this character in your universe, and I'd love to tell a story about them. Sure.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, I love that idea of getting people involved, even and kind of making it more, even a collaborative effort, and helping people out, and that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind. I've had help with from people getting my foot in the door, so I would be remiss to not pay it forward and not to say, hey man, you have, if you have a story and it looks good, and let's roll with it. Let's run with it.
Well, it's very, very kind of you to offer that. Now, I wanted to ask, as we're winding down here, you mentioned earlier on in the beginning of the stream that the Lawful Evil team, they're kind of viewed as almost like villains from the main public, and it's gonna be a while before their deeds are kind of truly brought to light. It sounds like is that gonna be a dynamic we're gonna be seeing in these first issues, where they're not necessarily viewed as the heroes that they are trying to be?
Right. In the first issue, issue 2, issue 3, up to issue 5, is where we actually see them. So people don't really know them in the first 2 issues, but in issue 3 on from there, they start to be viewed as a threat. Not only because, and the main reason is because of who runs Terminus, being Lily's brothers, and the knowledge that Dark Spider is an heir to Anansi and is one of the people who can stop them from accomplishing their father's plan. But when we'll start seeing them, shown more as a threat. And I think issue 6 is when we really get an idea of them being painted in the publicly painted by this company as villains. But the first couple of issues will be establishing more the building of the team, with little sprinkles of them being the campaign for them to be vilified being set up, on the villain side. Because we like I said, we're not just telling this story from the location or the perspective of the heroes or the main characters. We also go and take a look at what the antagonists are doing as well. So we have an idea of, it's almost as though the Lawful Evil team doesn't even know what they're getting themselves into.
Oh no. That's
wild. Yeah.
Well, that's really great. I'm very excited for your upcoming campaign. And speaking of which, is there anything that you'd like to say to people out there, maybe thinking about taking a look at your book on Gumroad, or even backing your campaign once it goes live?
It's adult themed. There's sex scenes in the story, in the comics. So if you are not interested in seeing that, I understand. But I'm letting you guys know that in the beginning, or rather, in relation to that. But it's a superhero comic. It's a superhero revenge comic, and that's for better and or worse. That is what it is. So if you're looking for that and you don't mind a little, some adult themes, then I would recommend taking a look. If you're interested in looking at something where, with an odd couple cast or an odd couple duo, I think this book is definitely for you. I think if you're interested in looking at something that takes a look a little deeper into the lives of people with special abilities and humanizes them a little bit more, I think this is for you as well. We in relation to that, remembering that the gods and monsters that we love are usually just regular people like us. So,
yeah. Wow, that's a really cool way to look at it. I love that, man. Well, thank you again for coming on to the show to talk with us. I think that's really cool. Again, I think you have such an interesting superhero universe. Like you kind of mentioned, it's such an interesting take and a different version than what we're seeing other people do. So I really appreciate that freshness. And I always enjoy good, dark, gritty stories. So I do kind of like the mature angle you're taking with it too. It's you're welcome. It's really cool. And where can people follow you online so they can go check out the comic and make sure that they see, can follow all the stuff you got going on?
We have a Twitter, which is Lawful Evil at Lawful Evil Comic. My Twitter is handle is at Nilo Maxwell. That's N as in Nancy, E as in Edward, L as in Larry, O as in Oscar. He just posted it. So if you O as in Oscar, M as in Mary, A is in Alpha, X is in X-ray, W as in William, E is in Edward, L as in Larry, L as in Larry. I usually have to spell it out because people get the N and the M mixed. We also have Instagram, which is Lawful Evil Comics. It's on Instagram, and we have a Facebook page, but we don't really use it too much. But it is Lawful Evil Comics, and the website is coming soon as well. And we have a Patreon. Our Patreon is I should put that. It is Lawful Evil Comics Patreon / Lawful Evil Comics. Patreon.com/Lawful Evil Comics. We have a Patreon as well, where we post a lot of the pages, the unlettered or lettered pages. Those are where a lot of our thank you. Yeah, we have where a lot of our new stuff. And if you are a subscriber and you subscribe to the $5 tier or higher, you're getting the comics for free. So you don't even have to go. You have to go on Gumroad. You get the PDFs for the comics and such for free.
And that really helps out, of course, with the creation of the comic, I'd imagine, and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does go towards all of the money that we get from Patreon, and even our sales on Gumroad go back into production. We're straight, back into production stuff kind of people. Awesome. So, it helps. We like people to see that they're helping build the product and build the world.
And people love to be part of that kind of stuff. I mean, I think it really makes people feel, like you said, feel like they're involved in that process and get to see the ins and outs and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. We'll definitely be inviting you back on once your Kickstarter Indiegogo, comes around. We have another show where we talk all about crowdfunders. So we'd love to have you back on to talk about that.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Awesome. Well, thank you again for talking with us. Everybody, please go check out all the links that we just shared there. Pick up the book if you can, and if you like it, to consider backing it once it goes live in a couple months. And
thank you.
You're very welcome, and thanks again, Rayshawn. Thank you everyone who watched on the in the live, and if you're watching on the replay, we definitely appreciate it, and definitely share this with everyone. And so go check out these awesome comics, man. They're really cool. And again, Lawful Evil Comics. It's just a big world. It's just getting started, and it's just going to go amazing places. So please go check it out, everyone. And we'll see you guys on a future episode of the Indie Spotlight.